From Acorn to Oak. Let's get right to it. Hello once again, J-Spot peeps, and thank you for taking some of your valuable time to spend with me here in the J-Spot. I'm your host, Mr. J, and for those of you who have subscribed thus far, a hearty shout out to you. And for those of you who have not, please do so. We'd like to get our subscriptions up to a 500 subscriber milestone as soon as possible. And make sure you like, share, drop a comment, and hit that notification button. As you know, this platform is about discovery, rediscovery, resurrection, and purpose. And so today, I want to talk a little bit about discovery of purpose and how we can recognize the manifestation of that purpose and what is really the purpose of that purpose. Several years ago, I think maybe 11 years ago or so, 12 years ago, I can't recall exactly where I was. I was in a park, perhaps. And I happened to look down on the ground, and there were like 4 acorns lying there. And I realized I was standing next to an oak tree. So I picked them up, and I had them in my hand. I'm looking at them in the palm of my hand. And as I'm looking up and looking at this mighty oak tree, I'm saying to myself, wow, there are oak trees in these acorns. You know, from acorn to oak. But I'm also realizing that while there are oak trees within the acorns, unless these acorns were planted in the right environment, they will never become oak trees. You can lay them there, you can put them on your windowsill in your house and they can stay wherever they want for 100 years or whatever, wherever you put them, but they will never be what's inside of them, what they were purposed to be, until they're in the right environment. And it's not to say they won't serve. They don't provide a service while they're in the state of being an acorn, because animals will eat them, you know, and store them away for the winter. And the oak tree, you know, in its purpose, provides shade, provides nesting areas for other animals and birds. Majestic, steadfast in its strength. But if you put that acorn in the ground and you plant it, now what I want you to understand is what I'm talking about us in relation to the journey of an acorn to an oak. Scripture says that unless the seed dies into itself, it will never bear fruit. And what that means, as long as it insists on being what it is in its original state, it will never manifest what's inside of it and what's really the purpose that's inside of it. So when it's planted in a hole, dark dirt, a dank environment, wet and cold, the first thing that it has to do that's required of it in order for it to become what's inside of it is that it die on the outside. That it kills its original state. That it dies into its original state. Much like us, we are planted into this earth. And in order for us to live our purpose or to become what's really inside of us, we have to sacrifice ourselves in its normal state, because we have seed in us also. And I don't mean procreation seed. I'm talking about spiritual seed that transforms into purpose, that manifests as purpose. So when you plant that seed, think about this is our journey also. It's down there in this dark hole, has no idea what it's supposed to be. much like us, but it knows it's supposed to be something. But mind you, it's not down there alone. There are worms, there are slugs, there are other roots, there are roots down there from other plants and trees. All of these things in there trying to take up that space for themselves. Beneath ground, they are trying to deny this plant, this seed, its room and its place in the world. And while the root of the seed protrudes and it is soft, it's malleable, which means it can be manipulated. Because it knows it's supposed to be something, it never gives in and never allows anything down there to break it. Much like we do. Up here, the bugs, the slugs, and the other roots and the things that are trying to deny us our space, we call them haters up here. And while we don't know what it is we were planted to be, the reason most of us never find out is because we never slay our flesh. We insist on being who we are originally. We do not allow the manifestation of the spiritual seed that it was within us. We don't allow its manifestation for the world to see. We have a mighty oak within us, called the Spirit of the Lord, who has not given us the spirit of fear and those who shrink back and are afraid. And so, the seed in the ground, one day it pops out. And here I am, world. And what's the first thing it does? It bends toward the light. It bends towards its source of energy. Much like us, we continue to grow because we know we are bending toward our higher power, from whence cometh our help, whomever that might be. And even though while the plant is out in the open now in the world, it still has to endure the storms of life, the wind, the rain, the sun, the frost, the animals that come and try to nibble on it and devour it, and the winds that blow it back and forth and side to side. It bends, but it never breaks because it knows it has a purpose. It doesn't know if it's a collard green plant, a tomato plant. It doesn't know if it's poison ivy. It doesn't know what it's supposed to be, but it knows it has a purpose. Otherwise, it would never have been planted. Just like us. Just like us. And then one day, poof, it blossoms. While it was a bud, no one paid attention to it. But when it blossomed in all its glory, say for instance it's a tulip or a lily or a rose bush, whatever it is, tomato plant, whatever, in its glory, it doesn't have to do anything but stand there and exist in its glory. And as it does, say if it's a tulip, people walk by and they smell the sweet aroma of the flower, how exquisite it is, and they stop and they smell of it and they like to take a piece of it home. Just like us. Doesn't have to give a resume. It doesn't have to go to the gym. It doesn't have to have a lot of money. It just is because it's in its glory. Just like us. When we blossom into our glory, we don't have to say a word because people are drawn to us and they'll ask us questions. Who are you? There's something different about you. Tell me a little bit about yourself. And not unlike the flower that draws the honeybee, that draws the bird, that draws the butterflies, that come and rest on it and drink of its nectar. When they fly away, they take some of that flower with them in the form of pollen on their legs, and they spread it. And they pollinate other things as they go along, giving life to other things, giving welfare to other things. As it says in the book of Jeremiah, God says, but seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray the Lord on their behalf, for in its welfare you will find your welfare. See? In other words, he's saying, by you serving the purpose that you have been purposed to serve, to fill, not because you're knocking on doors, not because you're bragging, not because you have a bullhorn, not because you're praying in public like the Pharisees used to do just to be seen, not because you're jumping up and down trying to be seen, but because you're reveling in your glory. And when you share your story, you will talk to them about your trials and your tribulations and how you withstood the haters, how you withstood the dark and dank times and environment that you found yourself in at times. But because you had the spine of an oak, you withstood it and you stood there. And you remember the tears that you cried in your home with the shades drawn behind slightly cracked doors. You remember those days when you were hungry, when you were without, when your cupboard was bare. But because you knew you had purpose, you had a spiritual seed within you that was going to look out for the welfare of others in due time, you never gave in and they never broke you. Because you have the spine of an oak. And you have spiritual acorns within you. Remember, folks, your dreams are not dead. They're only asleep. Where have you laid your dreams? Where have you been planted? Are you in the right environment, or are you somewhere on someone's window shelf? Languishing with the spiritual oak is within you. Pray for the welfare of others. And in that, you will find your own welfare. Serve the welfare of others. You don't have to make a lot of money to do it. You don't have to make any money to do it. Don't think that you have to be rich in order to be used. Use me where I am with what I have. Grow me where I am planted. Where are you, folks? Where have you been planted? Where are you? From acorn to oak. Remember, you have a spiritual seed. You have a spiritual story to tell. You have a spiritual service in you that someone is waiting for you to show up to be served with. Remember, from acorn to oak. Thanks again, J-Spot people, for spending some of your valuable time here with me in the J-Spot. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment. And please, come back to see me, because we still have a lot of discovering to do and a lot more purpose to pursue. In the meantime, peace. Bend toward the light. Pretend you are a flower, alone in darkest night, that knows the lone source of its power, and bend towards the light. Make believe you have no clue of what is it you should be, but that something burns in you that you must survive to see. Imagine that you have been purposed to tell the world a story, not just to occupy Earth's surface, but to show the world your glory. Picture all the winds and rains and storms that you must face, the suffering and silent pain, not the swiftest in the race. Conjure up a circumstance where victory's been denied. When you think you have no chance, though try as you might, you tried. Imagine that you've given up and are drowning in despair, that you're drinking from life's bitter cup, that for failure you're prepared. When suddenly you hear a voice that says, I am your power. I am here, my child, rejoice. You've always been my flower. You are a flower for all seasons, in each a different story. I planted you, child, for a reason. You are my morning glory. I am a rose of Sharon, a lily of the valleys. Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 1.